The output cache attribute has been available since the first release of MVC, but up until MVC 3, we have not been able to apply the attribute to child actions. A child action is an action that is invoked by using html.renderAction or html.action helpers from inside of a view. This is a significant improvement because previously we had a mostly all or nothing cache strategy. You can cache everything inside of a view or you can cache nothing. Now that output cache works on a child action, we can cache pieces inside of a view independently. To demonstrate output caching with the child action, let's look at an example where the index action of the home controller is going to pass the current date time into the default view. And inside the default view, we'll simply write out the current time that exists. I also want to call a child action from here. So let's use html.action and ask for the action current time from the home controller to render in a place right here. The current time action can look just like the index action, except we are going to return a partial view, and I'll just make that explicit. It doesn't need to be explicit for output caching to work, and this is called current time. Since this is returning a default view, we'll need something called current time in our views folder, and this is a partial view result. So let's go to the home folder, add a view called current time. We'll create this as a partial view. The model type for this will be of type datetime. And inside of here, we could have some text like, this is the child action result. Current time is at model.toLongTimeString. Perfect. If we run the application right now, these settings should roughly stay in place. 148.27, and every time I refresh, they're going to move in lockstep. Now let's introduce some output caching and see how this behavior changes. First, let's add output caching just to our child action. So I'll add the output cache attribute and say that the duration it should cache by default is for 10 seconds. Also, I'll point out if we expect this action to only be invoked using html.action or html.renderAction from a view, then we can add the child action only attribute here to make sure that someone doesn't make a direct request to this action. Once this is in place and we do a build, let's see how our application behaves now. I'm going to refresh. Both of our timestamps start off at 1 second afterwards. Refresh again. And you can see that this particular piece from the child action result has been cached. It's still stuck at 1 second. The primary timestamp has moved up to 6 seconds. Refresh once more. And this is now a new entry in the cache. We've discarded the old one because more than 10 seconds has elapsed, and we are up to 150.17. And now let's see what happens if we come back in and add an output cache attribute to our index action. The other thing I'm going to do is place a breakpoint here inside of the index action and inside of the current time action. And this time let's run with debugging. So of course we break into the index action, we break into the current time action, and we display both of those times. If I refresh, we're not breaking into either action, they've both been cached. So you can see that output cache can have a tremendous benefit for the performance of your application and the scalability, because we're not even executing the code that is inside of those actions. The result that they have produced has been cached and stored away. If I refresh again, everything is still cached. Even though the child action is only cached for 10 seconds, we've told the index action to cache for 60 seconds. So in effect, the entire output of our view has been cached for 1 minute. Not executing any code is the best way to increase the performance of your application.